A couple of days back, we posted a reel about learning to say no, and a lot of you liked that reel and related with it. और बहुत सारे लोगों ने DMs भी किए और comments भी भेजे कि पता नहीं क्यों इतना मुश्किल है. मुझे भी नहीं पता. Honestly, I've been trying to learn this for such a long time, but there's a time when I just feel very, very guilty for saying no. So we figured that why not discuss this in more detail and try and understand why it's so hard to say no and learn how to get better at it. And to understand that, we need to talk to an expert, somebody who really knows what's going on, what goes on in our heads when we kind of feel guilty about saying no and struggle to say no. So which is why we have invited Dr. Hira Waseem. If you haven't seen her content, you have to. It's amazing. You should definitely check it out. Personally, I love her content because it's in Urdu. It's so easy to understand.
Psychology के concepts, बहुत सारे important चीजें.
Yeah.
Behavior के बारे में, understanding के बारे में.
So that increases the accessibility के बहुत सारे लोग जिनको वैसे otherwise समझ नहीं आती हैं चीजें वो भी समझ सकते हैं. So if you haven't seen her account, you have to check it out. And when we take her on this call, we'll ask her more about what got her to start this content. But that's the basic context of why we're doing this live session. So बाकी के लिए let's first just take Dr. Hira on call. की बात करें.
Yeah, without further ado.
और जैसे कि मैंने बताया हम अभी थोड़ी देर पहले सो के उठे तो हम थोड़ा आहिस्ता प्रोसेस कर रहे हैं चीजों को. So
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. कैसे हैं आप? ठीक ठाक?
Good day. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry आप लोगों का बहुत early है सुबह का time.
हम late सोए थे. Otherwise this is not early. We're happy to have you on call finally. We've been following your content.
Yeah.
And we are your.
We love it.
Oh yeah, we love it.
You guys are really kind. I love your content and इतना मैं expert नहीं हूँ, so thank you.
हमसे ज़्यादा expert हैं for sure.
No, but I love your content. So thank you because I'm really bad at finances. So मैं बहुत सीखती हूँ.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you. और अभी हम before we took you on this call, we were just discussing why we are doing this live session, what even got us to think about it कि इस पे ज़्यादा discussion होनी चाहिए because when we posted that reel, you won't believe how many people sent us DMs. Comment करने में I guess लोग hesitant होते हैं because they know that other people are watching कि वो क्या comment कर रहे हैं, but then so many people messaged us कि नहीं कहा जाता ना, और जब मैं ना कह भी देती हूँ ना तो कहने के बाद constant दिमाग में चलता रहता है नहीं कहना चाहिए था, गलत हो गया, rude हो गया सर. And I relate with that. That happens with me too. I am no expert because I can tell you I struggle with that so much.
I
so
hear
which
you.
is why like we want to understand क्यों इतना मसला, like क्यों
Why is
मुश्किल
it so
लगता है.
hard? Like मतलब दिल इतना क्यों होता है? परेशानी क्यों होती है when we are about to say it and we're just second guessing ourselves कि पता नहीं क्या गलत हो रहा है क्या.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I was so excited when you chose the topic because it's so relevant and it's not straightforward. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today because it's not like black or white.
Yeah.
So I think why it's hard is before we understand why it's hard, I think it's important that what's the value? कि क्यों करना चाहिए? Why is it helpful? इससे क्या value और कदर आ सकती है हमारी life में? So I think that piece is really important.
That would be Dr. Hira, before we move forward and we get into the discussion, it'd be so helpful if you could just like very briefly introduce yourselves.
I'm originally Pakistan से हूँ and I grew up in Lahore. My medical school was in Karachi, Aga Khan. So I went there and उसके बाद फिर then I have before going to medical school I wanted to do psychiatry. So I knew that I wanted to do psychiatry before I knew I wanted to be a doctor. So काफी passionate just to say the least. So then after that I just moved to United States for training. और फिर तब से यहीं पर हूँ, psychiatry की training की, and then I did child psychiatry specifically, and then now doing addiction psychiatry. So yeah, so that's my background.
You've been in the US for some time?
Yes, so I would say 7 years now. So बल्कि I mention this all the time. Okay, one of the reasons why I made the platform was कि I miss Pakistan and I love our people and I feel like बहुत कम information है उर्दू के अंदर और understandable. So that was one of my motivations कि अब मैं यहाँ इतनी दूर हूँ, so why not just create something which can help me feel connected and help other people as well. So
it's amazing. And I think it's helping so many people. Like I've seen some comments on your videos कि जिनके लिए the only access to this like education is through your videos. And
oh, that's thank you. I agree कि इतना content है psychology के ऊपर English में, but there's very limited in Urdu.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And now let's dive into the discussion
Yeah.
or discuss
Like, why is it so hard to
And-
say no?
and so let's start with like that deluded question कि जो क्यों इतना मुश्किल लगता है ना कहना, even on things which are actually जिसके बारे में ना कहने में कुछ परेशानी नहीं होनी चाहिए. किसी बॉस ने एक्स्ट्रा काम दे दिया, नहीं है मेरे डोमेन में वो काम, लेकिन फिर भी ना कहना इतना मुश्किल लग रहा है. Where does this stem from?
I think a lot of it has to do with our upbringing and our culture and our environment. So, and I don't want to again stereotype, लेकिन I think हमारा culture बहुत warm है और बहुत ज़्यादा हम एक दूसरे से close होते हैं और हम लोग you know maybe a little bit from Eastern perspective. तो उसमें concept है enmeshment का, वो आ जाता है कि when you boundaries नहीं होती and you're too much into each other, कि बिल्कुल भी कोई फासला नहीं होता कि नहीं अगर बस मैं घर पे पहुंच जाऊंगा बगैर बताए वाली चीज. So I think इन्वेस्टमेंट थोड़ा सा कल्चर में होता है. इसका मैं एग्जांपल हमेशा देती हूँ कि ट्रैफिक जो होती है ना किसी भी कंट्री में, आई थिंक इट्स प्रीटी रिफ्लेक्टिव ऑफ द कल्चर ऑफ दैट कंट्री और दैट प्लेस. सो अगेन नॉट टू पुट आवर कंट्री डाउन और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट, लेकिन आप देखें कि देयर इज अ रीजन व्हाई देयर रूल्स होता है कि लेन्स में रहना है आपने, अपनी ट्रैफिक लाइट को आपने ओबे करना है. दोज आर फॉर्म्स ऑफ बाउंड्रीज. So if I don't obey the boundaries, I'll end up in chaos and car crash or something like that. और वो chaos होगा जो कि हमें नजर आता है जिस different आप country to country जाते हैं आप देखते हैं, right? So I think कुछ तो environmental है absolutely कि छोटे होते से no नहीं कहना, that means no is rude. So we think कि शायद no कहने का मतलब है कि you're going to hurt somebody. So it's that perspective which is coming, whereas it's not. No is not about saying hurting anybody. No is more about saying yes. It's about saying yes to what matters to you. It's about saying yes to what you love doing. It's saying yes to things that bring more value to you and more comfort to you. So, and also, I think this is a different perspective, but this is when I was thinking about it more and more. I think it's about humility also. I mean, as human beings, I'm not a superhuman. So, मैं 10,000 लोगों के साथ सब कुछ आके नहीं मिल सकती और उतना time नहीं दे सकती. So, you know, I'm human. So, unlimited energy नहीं है. So just, you know, coming back that I have limited space, limited time. Who can I give it to? What can I spend it on? I think that's really helpful. I think, और इसलिए मुश्किल stigmatize किया हमने no को. In another words, कि नहीं no तो बहुत बुरी बात है. It's not an aggressive thing. It's, go ahead.
But okay, so this is from let's say my side. If I struggle to say no because of upbringing, but then if you flip it, people do mind it when you say no. It's not like
Right.
आप कोई भी कंडीशनिंग तब होती है जब आपको उसका रिस्पॉन्स मिलता है. अगर मैं ना भी कहूँ तो मेरा तजुर्बा यही है कि लोग बुरा मान जाते हैं. क्या मैं आपके घर आ सकती हूँ? नहीं, मैं फिलहाल मेरी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है. I'm 100% sure the person is going to mind this, right? So
Okay.
that's also a reason, right? Why?
Right.
Yeah.
No, so उसमें थोड़ा सा yeah, it's a little bit complex. So we have to realize कि spend more time in identifying why we're saying no. अब नो का ये मतलब नहीं कि हमने दुनिया की हर चीज को नो कह दिया, राइट? With time, circumstances, different people, who you're saying going to say no to is going to change, right? तो कुछ ये हो रहा है सोशल मीडिया के साथ कि when we're learning about boundaries, तो हम limited understanding के साथ लोगों को लग रहा है तो लोग उसको extreme पे ले जा रहे हैं in some cases कि harsh हो रहे हैं. We don't have to be harsh, right? You don't have to be aggressive. आपने सिर्फ थोड़ी सी अपनी हद को आपने express किया है और आपने जिस तरह से आपने कहा कि आई एम सिक राइट नाउ कि हम मे बी वी कैन मीट अनदर टाइम. सो अगर उसके बाद आप अग्रेसिव नहीं हुए, आपने एक रीजनेबल लिमिट के अंदर एक्सप्रेस कर दिया, उसके बाद इट्स हार्ड बट इट्स नॉट योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू डील विद द रिएक्शन. वो मुश्किल है. And I think the more people do it, utna culture takes time to change, right?
Takes time to change. So I like this bit what you said, that it's not your responsibility, because what happens is when you, even after you've said no, you kind of carry the responsibility in your heart, right?
And the guilt as well, right?
The guilt of it.
Yeah. Right. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you. Usme, I think let me just quickly state that boundaries जो है वो different domains की हैं. There is a cognitive boundaries, which is mental boundaries, what I'm going to spend time thinking on. Then there are affect boundaries कि किसी का anger, aggression, emotion मैं अपने पे तारी कर लूं. So I have to have some boundary with that also. Then there are personal physical space boundaries कि कोई मुझे कितना touch कर रहा है, you know, वो भी मैंने establish करनी है. In time and space boundaries है. So उसमें boundary आ जाती है, cognitive boundary and affect boundary, right? कि हाँ वो परेशान हो गई हैं, वो गुस्सा हो गई, but उनकी परेशानी I can't carry that. And I give this example for my line of work. I have to deal with a lot of emotions at work all the time, but I can't bring all of that home. And it's hard for me. I do get deeply enmeshed in it sometimes at work. So I have to remind myself, no. I have to practice my boundaries. I can't take this to my husband ghar jaake, ki ye hua, ye patient tha, wo patient, you can't. So usme cognitive and affect boundaries aa jati hain. Ki it comes with practice, aista. And the guilt, wo, again, if you've spent more time on the why, कि क्यों मैं यहाँ पे no कह रही हूँ, why? Because this is what matters more to me. This doesn't as much. तो वो जब value ज़्यादा होगी तो फिर the guilt will go down. I think it's like an unfounded guilt, and sometimes it can be, अगर कोई आपको guilty feel करा रहा है, so that's like a red flag. That's a red flag.
And like it's so interesting connecting it to upbringing. We are kind of trained to take that responsibility. Okay, for example, घर में जब छोटे थे तो like the mood of your parents and things like that, उसमें जो है हम बचपन में ये सोचते रहते कि यार मैं ऐसा कुछ ना कर दूं इसकी वजह से जो है ना इनको बुरा लगेगा. And I think kind of like I don't know like exactly क्या उसका process होता है why like kids take up that responsibility, but I do remember that sometimes I would think कि अच्छा मैंने कुछ ऐसा कर दिया है जिसकी वजह से जो है ना मेरे अब्बा को बुरा लग गया है या फिर अम्मी को बुरा लग गया है, and you are kind of like that responsibility is put on you कि इस चीज का जो है ना like तुमने ऐसा कुछ कह दिया जिसकी वजह से उनको बुरा लग गया. अब वो जो है ना बेशक that can be something कि जो necessarily गलत ना हो, but you still have to take that responsibility.
Right. Now, thank you for sharing that. Now, I agree with you, and it starts there, absolutely. Usme kya hota hai ki, again, it goes back to environment and childhood. And whenever I'm talking about this, it's so sensitive. I don't want parents to feel कि हम उनको blame कर रहे हैं. I don't want families to feel. The whole goal is कि हम खुद थोड़ी सी in adult life, we develop an awareness कि that's where it's coming from, right? कि उस वक्त child का जो brain, if we look at it a little bit developmentally, so it's the easiest for them to think that it's my fault. Because that's the safest thing to do. अगर वो सोचना शुरू कर देंगे कि अब्बू गलत है, अम्मी गलत है, XYZ गलत है, then the child will feel unsafe, right? Yeah. So कि मेरी environment unsafe. So वो developmentally inappropriate हो जाएगा. So for the kid to feel safe, they think it's my fault. And then that can be carried on for the rest of your life. So that's completely understandable. So उसमें थोड़ी सी then practicing of forgiveness, forgiving yourself for carrying that belief, forgiving the family, they didn't know anything better. And then moving forward, ki boundaries are mentally. So again, jab hum blame mein stuck rahenge, so then the guilt is going to get worse. So it's not a blame game. It's not about making anyone feel bad. It's about just identifying how can I feel safe now. And we also know when we practice better boundaries, people have low levels of anxiety, low levels of stress, better levels of relationship. What do you call? What's the word I'm looking for? Satisfaction. So वो सारी चीजें जो हैं, we know like even biologically, research-wise is better. So they're important. Boundaries and learning to say no is important.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to sort of pivot the conversation towards, this is something that we all understand that it's hard to say no, that it is often followed by guilt. But then I want to focus on how to get better at it. Yeah. And I think my first question would be around boundaries. We come from a culture जहाँ नहीं होती boundaries. ना कह दिया तो मसला है, घर आने से पहले बता. अगर I know parents, उनको लगता है अगर बताकर आएंगे तो कम, like इसका मतलब you're not as close with them, right? कि बताकर तो वो लोग आते हैं जो मेहमान होते हैं. So किसी भी टाइम पे आ जाएंगे. I have relatives जो किसी भी टाइम पे आ जाएंगे because बताके तो सिर्फ मेहमान आते हैं.
I see.
To this day, like my mother is like कि नहीं, उनसे पूछ के जाना. My father is like, क्यों? घर भी तो होंगे.
They'll be watching this live, you know, right? And they'll be like, बेटा क्या बात कर रहे हो?
Right. So उसमें आ जाता है कि there will be variability. Again, what's happening is कि social media और बाकी जो हम सीख रहे हैं, so we're going to do an extreme also, right? हर एक का family culture and culture between two people's relationship is also different. So it may vary. For some people, as you said, they will like कि आप घर आओ, लेकिन अगर आपको उस dynamic में वो suit नहीं कर रहा, so you can either be a little bit, so you spend time, first of all, identify, am I okay with that? So spend time with that. जब आपने वो figure out कर लिया, then you can communicate that. लेकिन if you think, this is again all on you. If you feel your relationship is it matters more to you, or this chota sa sacrifice doesn't mean much to you, it's not gonna hurt you more, then you set that boundary yourself. So I guess the message I want to give is कि hard no और हर चीज में no नहीं हम करें. Spend time analyzing कि किस चीज में no कहना आपके लिए worth it है. It's an analysis also, right? Where you don't start feeling resentful. So the goal is कि आप resentful now, angry now, bitter now, frustrated now. So if that's fine, so then that's okay. So it's a very personal process. Sorry, going back to the question. Initially, Sanat ka kya question tha कि
how to get better at it.
How to get better.
How to draw boundaries and how to even identify कि मेरी boundary ये है.
Yeah.
अक्सर लोगों को पता ही नहीं पता होता.
Right.
क्या चीज boundary है? Like
Right.
where does boundary lie? Yeah.
So usme, so again, I always say sitting with yourself and identifying why do I feel. So first of all, start by thinking कि life के कौन से perspective or relationships या life के domains में am I feeling like I'm not asserting myself. I'm feeling like I'm giving in more than I should. I'm feeling like I'm losing energy. So thinking कि life के कौन से areas में वो हो रहा है. Is it at work? Is it with my relationship with my husband, my wife, or my parents, in-laws? किसके साथ मुझे हो रहा है? So identifying कौन से area में, and then वहाँ पे then start small, कि specific situation, narrow it down, और फिर उस situation में how can I assert myself? कि assertion is not aggression, it's not passive behavior. You state exactly what you're feeling and your expectation. And उसमें ये करना है कि again, we have to then, once you've decided कि यहाँ पे मेरा no है, then it's possible the other person's going to try to convince you the other way. Then you have to be consistent. क्योंकि उसमें फिर वो behavior psychology वाला concept आ जाता है ना कि अगर आप no कह के फिर आपने yes में change कर दिया, so then they know कि नहीं इनको मैं convince कर लूंगी. I will convince them, I'll change their no to yes. So usme, when you've decided that this is a no, so then you have to stick to that specific situation, usme no. And consistency is important. And obviously then reminding yourself that this is why I'm doing this. And this is why it matters to me.
Okay, I really like this. So one thing is to identify where you think you're giving a lot of yourself, and then once you've identified, then sticking with it. I guess that's where I feel. Like now that I'm listening, that's where I feel like, just to stay consistent with that thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Usme, we can pick up an example, as you mentioned, work ka, right? कि काम पे अगर boss is giving a lot of work. So उसमें again, there is a certain, so again, हम extreme toxic environment की बात नहीं कर रहे कि extremely सारा गलत हो रहा है. But asserting yourself, I think it goes back to then feeling like you're worthy enough to assert yourself. So वो थोड़ा सा fear of abandonment, rejection आ जाती है कि if I say this, I'm going to be fired. If I say this, I'm going to be rude. No, when you know that you are a great employee, you're adding value. So there's nothing wrong कि यहाँ पे I say कि this is hard for me to do. Maybe, or sometimes it's a boundary where people text you on the weekend, right? So you just don't have to respond on the weekend to the email. आप Monday को जाके reply करें, they'll get the message. कि they don't respond on the weekend, they don't respond after 5 p.m. So that's how you sort of assert yourself in actions and words. दोनों तरीके से.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said, na, कि like you have to spend some time, and in most cases significant time, thinking about this. Like when you said na, कि like you have to spend some time with yourself, I was like, what is that? Like if you if you had said this to me about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have asked you that. What is that? मतलब अपने साथ तो होते हैं हम हमेशा. Like थोड़ा like just like very briefly, can you shed some more light on that? Like
sure.
Spending time with yourself, like quality. For example, मैं घंटों बैठ सकता हूँ, मेरे हाथ में मोबाइल होगा, मैं बैठूंगा. Apparently, I'm spending time with myself, right? But that's not what you're referring to.
Right.
Yeah.
Usme, no, I'm glad this conversation is getting more and more interesting. So Usme, basically, I grew up in a big family. We're 5 siblings. So aapki hamesha, it's always about other people, what they want and what everything wants. So, and hamara culture bhi itna, I think that's beautiful. It's really warm and close. But then we don't signify enough on spending time alone and reflecting कि आपकी क्या values हैं, आपको क्या matter करता है. So spending more time in the quiet. So इसमें space आती है. Even from partners, you want some alone time. बेशक हफ्ते में 2 घंटे is just your time. वो आप gym जाओ, walk पे जाओ, do things that bring more pleasure to you. Hobbies हो सकती हैं. I also think writing a diary is helpful, sometimes just reflecting your thoughts. I don't do that as much anymore, but shuru mein jab maine shuru ki thi reflections, so I would write down. Okay, almost, at least if not daily, once a week, I would sit down and think, what matters to me? Asking yourself reflective questions. Okay, why am I think you guys do that enough. I can see that in your videos. So just thinking, okay, what matters to you? What do I value? What brings me happiness? So asking those deeper questions. And what can I do more of? How can I make myself feel more sort of satisfied with what I'm doing? And what I'm doing, is that in line with my values? So ek seedhi, agar main concrete pe chale jaun, to even you can Google set of like values. There's over 100 list of values. Start by, like, I'll say this to clients, highlight top 10 things that value, jo values se aap align karte hai. So like top 10 values jo aapko pasand hai, write them down, narrow it down more, bring it down to 5, bring it down to top 3. क्योंकि हम सारी 10 को भी नहीं कर सकते achieve, right? कि मुझे travel भी करना है, मुझे पैसे भी चाहिए और मुझे joy भी, like हर चीज नहीं मिल सकती. So you narrow it down and then see, are you living in line with those values? So it's just an exercise.
No, it's amazing, and like that's why like I wanted to talk about it, because नहीं होता, and it's not even like कोई अगर बंदा जो है ना कह ले कि यार I need some time for myself, I need some personal time, तो एक वो लेबल होना शुरू हो जाता है कि ये तन्हाई पसंद है, ये मर्दुम बेजार है, आदम बेजार. Oh, I've heard that word for myself. Adam bezar.
I'm hearing it for the first time. अच्छा, Adam Bizarre. That's a beautiful word.
बहुत यूज होता है word Adam Bizarre. Somebody who's just like sick and tired of people. कि मुझे अलग रहना है, island बन के.
अच्छा, उसमें I'll just share a personal thing. So when I started this journey of reflecting, so we have to be mindful. We're not doing too much of that also, right? Isolation की तरफ जा रहे हैं. That means we're taking the boundaries too up. बहुत isolation की तरफ अगर आप जाने लगे, so that means we're doing something wrong. Yeah. So I had to remember, no, my true nature is I enjoy being around people. It gives me more joy. So you don't want to take it too far. But shuru mein jab start karte hain, that's okay. A lot of people will take it too far, but that's why you can just dial it back in. So उसमें re-evaluation का भी concept है कि ये नहीं कि मैंने 10 साल पहले जो values set की थी वो change नहीं हुई. Like you guys do that. You re-evaluate your goals and see what I'm at. So it's a regular process, consistent, go back, revisit. Am I doing too much of boundaries? Am I doing too less? So just dialing that compass back can be helpful.
And just to like, in what in context of what you just said about like, so let's suppose you go to your boss message over the weekend और आप बोलते आप reply नहीं करते, ठीक है? You're practicing your boundaries. आपने उसको reply नहीं किया. आप मंडे को ऑफिस जाते हो, मंडे को ऑफिस में बोलते हैं कि आप बड़ा बिजी होती है, वीकेंड पे रिप्लाई भी नहीं करती हैं. And that is not unheard of. पाकिस्तान में बहुत कैजुअली से कमेंट्स पास होते हैं. या फिर अगर आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं कि नहीं मुझे अपनी बाउंड्री सेट करनी है और आप नेक्स्ट टाइम यू मीट द पर्सन देयर लाइक तुम बहुत आदम बेजार हो, ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए, ये हमारी कल्चर नहीं है, ये हमारी व्हाटएवर, राइट? Even though you are you're sure कि जो मैं अभी बाउंड्री सेट करी, this is what I need at the moment. This is what I need. But because that one comment, that kind of makes you rethink. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, because we are so there's such an inherent fear of that criticism
and disapproval. कि कोई मुझसे नाराज हो जाएगा. कि आप बोलते हो कि यार बॉस ने कहा है, हाँ, तो फिर what you do is you start overcompensating. And I'm not talking about generally in people, but this is something I've seen in myself. अगर मेरे बॉस ने कह दिया कि आप बड़ा बिजी होती हैं, आप रिप्लाई नहीं करती हैं, 5 बजे के बाद कॉल नहीं लेती हैं. Now next time when he calls, that's what I've forgotten my boundary. I remember what he said, so I'm gonna take that call and be like, yeah, let me overcompensate because last time I didn't take it. Does that make sense? Is that a general experience as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. More in our traditional setting, I will say that. I think people respect more boundaries, but it varies also. Some toxic cultures, even in America, I will see that they will violate your personal time. और जितना यूरोप में जाते हैं, they American cultures also all different. They totally respect your like off work time. So usme, I know so it's harder to exist in a system where everything is normal like that. So usme, you have to you can use humor to respond to that, but stick to your boundary. Yeah. You can say, yeah, मेरी boundaries हैं. हाँ, मुझे space चाहिए होती है. आदम बिज़ारो, हाँ यार मैं हूँ. Like, just take it.
That's good. Yeah.
हाँ, so just use like lighter way to communicate back to that. And sometimes just a shorter response is helpful. So assertive communication में होता है, short and brief response gives them the message कि no, I'm not ready to hear, like write you a whole email. लंबी conversation भी नहीं. And so that's how you'll set it in the future. Aista, I guess they can understand. So short response, hey, it's the weekend, I'm with my family, I'll respond on Monday morning, something like that. Or agar wo nahi kare, so ye, by the way, ye kafi inappropriate comments hai work ke liye.
Yes, but they're so common. ये मैं आपको ये मैं कुछ far fetch नहीं बता रही है, तो ये वो चीजें जो सुनी है मैंने, like literally ये मेरी personal experience है कि my boss would be like कि आप बहुत आपको काम होता है. Like one time my boss said कि आप तो बड़ा आपका अपनी तरफ से बहुत यो लैंग्वेज थी उनके, आपका बड़ा lit weekend होता है. And I was like,
कहाँ से पता चला?
I was like, how does he know that I had a lit weekend? I was at home all time. It's like आप तो reply भी नहीं करती. I was like, Sunday था भाई. But then that literally, like, very...
Yeah. So I wondered if just responding nicely, yeah, maybe work-life boundaries and I keep them separate.
Yeah.
I just asserting that nicely. If
I think that's...
And what you said about earlier, ना कि जब आप शुरू में, for example, email आ गया, message आ गया, call आ गया, आपने नहीं उठाई. They get the message. Like I remember, like in my early days when I was like, मैं बड़ा इसको search करता था कि अच्छा कैसे करना है work-life balance क्या. And I learned that, and when I did that, people got the message and they knew कि अच्छा ये नहीं weekends पे reply करता emails का, और ये call भी नहीं उठाएगा off timings में. And it's important कि शुरू में जो है ना वो boundary setting हो. अगर एक मतलब वो boundary set नहीं हुई और कोई practice establish हो गई है, then उस time पे introduce करना boundaries, it's challenging, right? Like
right. It's challenging, but I don't want to take the hope away. I think it's still possible. Just again, I'll share a personal example. I used to be super available for many people. Like maybe batch ke upar wale 5 batches upar, 5 batches niche, add up. So lots of people. So sabko lagta tha ki bas, we can call her anytime. We go stay with her. And which was probably like, it was coming from my upbringing and 5 pen paises, everything. So I've had this shift in the last 5-6 years in my sort of boundaries as well. So when people from olden times, when they gotta reach out, they see a little bit of a difference, but I tell myself I'm not going to feel guilty. I don't have energy for everybody. So you will get some pushback when you try to change the dynamic, but if you do it repeatedly and you're doing the right thing, people do get the message.
So I know what example you're giving, but I want to point this out. So you worked in workplaces जहाँ पे boundary set करना बहुत मुश्किल था, and then you also worked in places जहाँ पे आसान था. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जिन लोगों की अपनी boundaries होती हैं, वो boundary के messages को समझ भी जाते हैं.
Exactly.
But then sometimes you work with people who themselves have no boundaries.
Yeah.
And when they don't have any boundaries, they find other people drawing boundaries a lot more offensive. What do you think? Is there some... Because I worked in places where people had no boundaries.
Exactly.
And they always find me rude. I was the rudest person in my office. I was like, oh, ये तो बहुत rude है, इनके तो बहुत नखरे हैं. Literally.
Right, no. Yeah, मुझे 6 साल हो गए, so मुझे relate करना थोड़ा सा सोचना पड़ेगा. So it depends on how much you need to interact with them at work. Do you really need to be one-on-one with them, or is it just that they're in your space? And so agar to, the question goes back to, do you need to maintain a relationship with them? Agar boss hai, colleague hai, and you have to actively work on something. So if they're offended, again, that's not on you.
That's not on you.
You continue to engage with them for work, because they're not your friends unless they become your buddies outside of work. Those are blurry lines again.
Those are blurry lines, yeah.
So again, thoda sa
बिल्कुल, that's so true. One thing that like जब मैं इस चीज को देखा था, because it was really like it came from my heart when I said that कि मेरे लिए बहुत मुश्किल था ना करना, and I always used to like overcommit and then later on scramble to like fulfill those commitments. One thing that really helped me out, मैंने कहीं देख ली थी एक video, something about delaying your yeses, and then you in the comments you mentioned something about how it gives you that extra time. Can you like उसके बारे में थोड़ा बताएंगी?
Right. उसमें जब हमें बहुत urge होती है ना, when we're taught to just say yes all the time, तो एक urgency होती है, message आया मुझे फौरन respond करना है, वरना offend हो जाएंगे, right? So उसमें you're probably not thinking through कि can I even do this task? Can I show up to this party? मतलब क्या मेरे है time भी है नहीं है? But you'll say yes because you don't want to hurt them. So आप fear से respond कर रहे हैं, आप authentically respond नहीं कर रहे, right? And then it's also possible when people say yes like that, they'll end up, calling out बाद में कि oh sorry I couldn't make it. ये भी होता है हमारे culture में. You say a lot of yes, and then you don't show up and say yeah नहीं हो गया. So
जो हमारा इंशाल्लाह का concept है.
exactly.
You know that joke, if somebody's saying inshallah, they're not going to show up. They're not going to show up.
Right? तो अगर हम उसको bigger picture में देखें तो उस वक्त अब yes कह रहे, पर हमारे सारे yeses भी true yeses नहीं है. हमने कहा हाँ यार जरूर मिलेंगे इंशाल्लाह. Right? तो उसमें जो है you have to really, and going back to the question, कि जितना हम delay करते हैं उतना we think it through. Slowing down तो एक essential skill है, brain skill that applies to everything in life. We have to slow down, and I struggle with this because I am like more energetic and I'm quick to go Sara. So I've had to go through, and I'm still going through a lot of practice. I have to slow down mentally. Don't have to jump on answering, think it through. वो impulsivity आ जाती है ना. No, I'm going to go. And impulsivity, you don't think through and from the higher mental function. You're like from the animal brain. Yes, instantly. So slowing down is a very essential skill that helps you think it through, your decision, pros and cons, evaluate kiye, meri values se in line hai ya nahi. And then you say, I can do this and I can't do this. So slowing down, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Bahut acha way of saying no appropriately, asserting yourself.
Yeah, in most of the cases, like I know I don't want to do this thing. Yeah, I don't want to commit to this thing. But that lack of practice and inability to say no at the moment, saying assertively, नहीं यार मेरे दूसरे plans है मैं नहीं आ सकता.
Right.
But I usually say यार let me check क्योंकि मुझे अंदाजा है कुछ मेरी commitment है confirm कर लेता हूँ.
Right.
Like it works for me that way.
That's great. No, I'm glad you found that. Okay, let me think about it. Let me check my schedule. Let me run it by my wife. Let me see what we're doing, and then I'll get back to you.
So, Abibi, we find it hard to just say no, even though in our minds we know the answer is straight up no. I'm not coming to this or doing this because it doesn't fit my schedule. But then we find it easy to be like, oh, let me just check with Fadad. And then it becomes easy. I think we're giving it away. Whoever's watching it would know next time. When you're just like, oh, let me check with Fadad. Let me check with Sahas.
So that works?
The answer is going to be no. Because otherwise it's like, and it's really interesting because I also started thinking more about it when we moved here. Because जो ज़हन में मेरे डर होता था पाकिस्तान में ना कहते हुए exactly वो डर obviously मैं अपने साथ यहाँ लाई, but यहाँ पर conversations are a lot easy. They're a lot easier in a sense that you kind of know nobody's gonna mind it, right? You just be like नहीं मैं नहीं आ सकती because मुझे नींद आ रही है. It doesn't even have to be a big reason, like I'm dying or whatever, like नींद आ रही है या फिर मेरा mood नहीं है.
Right.
So I thought I'll slot some time, and I was surprised because somebody said that to me. And I asked, and they're just like, oh, I was planning to spend some time by myself. I was going to go to that place and just like sit. And I was like, really? That was that easy?
Right.
Give me the courage to do it next time. And it's really that easy. Zero
You're right.
So,
and if you, not that I'm an Islamic scholar or anything, but I'm just saying, going back to what really the values that are spiritual values में सिखाते हैं कि साफ बात करो, right? Straight. So, उसपे going back to what we were talking, delay में थोड़ा सा we have to be careful कि हम किसी को बहुत lead on नहीं कर रहे. वो भी have to be careful.
Yeah.
कि lead on नहीं कर रहे कि नहीं, if you think the best option is to let them take your time to decide mentally, but अगर दूसरों को नहीं लटकाएं, lead on नहीं करें, let them know. And then if they don't take it well, I'm sorry, then maybe we have to reevaluate our relationships and friendships.
It's a funny thing, but have you ever experienced, क्योंकि मेरे साथ ये काफी मर्तबा हुआ है कि जिसको आप ना कर रहे होते हो ना, तो वो फिर आपके लिए वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग सिचुएशन में चला जाता है कि नहीं इसको ऐसे कर लेते, अगली बस करा लेते, फिर ये हो जाएगा.
It's funny, it's kind of happening to us these days. Like since we moved here, we were just like, I can't say name, right? I shouldn't. That's a bad thing to do. So there's this person who lives a little far away, and they're like, oh, why don't you come over? And we don't have a car, right? We also have a very limited budget for stuff. And they're like, you know what? आप बस ले लें. ऐसे करे ट्रेन ले लें. मैं आपको schedule देख के भेजता हूँ, आप ये ले लें. पहले ये ले लें, फिर ये ले लें. And we're just like, but we don't want to like travel 1.5 hours just to meet you. Not right now.
Right.
But like, what do you do with that?
उसमें देखो ना, एक तो I'm glad. So it sounds like you were very transparent about the financial piece, because sometimes वहाँ तक some people will understand. For me, I'll say yeah, too expensive. The ticket's too expensive. I can't make it. तो अगर उस पे भी नहीं समझ आ रहा, they're really pushing it. So you say,
गाय बुझाने best है, like you don't stop replying.
Yeah, because then there are people who be like, मैं देती हूँ. मैं pay कर देती हूँ, परेशान ना. And that's when it kind of gets uncomfortable, right? Like a lazy person is offering to pay for you.
Yeah,
that's uncomfortable.
So I understand. So uspe can you just clearly state कि I want to spend the weekend reading or preparing content, and that's what we want to do. It's the farm socialize nahi kar rahe. It's been really helpful for me. I'm like, I don't want to socialize this weekend. I want to just read and relax at home.
Yeah, and at some point I think you will have to, like, I have to become comfortable with the fact कि हाँ मेरी कुछ बातें बहुत सारी बातें अगले इंसान को पसंद नहीं आएंगी, and they might find it offensive as well.
Right.
Going back to what you said, that you do not take that responsibility for what the other person is
Exactly.
feeling, right?
Exactly.
So, and like we talk about this, we say कि like I categorize it as a skill. Like it's a skill and art, like of saying no, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like anything, you can only get better at it जब आप इसको repeatedly करते हैं. Like
Exactly.
you understand what worked, what didn't work, अगली मर्तबा कैसे करना है.
Right. Absolutely.
As you said, consistent अगर नहीं होंगे तो वो boundary establish नहीं होगी. तो next time you're thinking about it, you're aware of it, then you be like consistent with what you said.
Right. Exactly. I love that you said that it's a skill. So like any skill, it takes practice,
Yes.
Repetition, और उसमें art भी आ जाती है जिसमें आ जाएगा how you'll say that no.
Exactly.
Make it humorous and just be super honest. So it's a skill. Repetition helps. And then to remind ourselves again, maybe I'm repeating myself, that it changes with relationship to relationship. So maybe if that was somebody closer to you, maybe if that was your sister, you would probably say, I don't need to have a no here. You know, so you reevaluate her relationship, circumstances to circumstances, it varies. So again, I don't want to give the message, keep us start being rude or aggressive and get your boundaries too up. Boundaries are a balance spectrum. Extreme pe bhi nahi jana. Because either extreme is based on fear. Ye wala fear of rejection or fear of abandonment hai, or ye wala ki I'll get hurt. So I'd rather be on my own. Yeah. So dono fears pe, we've got to dial up in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Very nice. I read that boundaries should protect you. They shouldn't block you off from the world. Like they shouldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, they shouldn't. So that's something that I found, like, that you have to have that balance, and you figure that out with every relationship.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just to add to that, something that I find helps me is to practice compassion in times when you fail to draw that boundary.
Oh yes.
Because when I decide that I'm going to do it and I fail at it, मैं consistent नहीं रह पाई. Agla was too persistent in changing my no to that yes, and I gave in. I'm left with an even worse feeling than the guilt that would have done that. I'm just like, पहले ही हाँ कर देती मैं.
Oh.
So
no, I agree. Yeah. Self-compassion and forgiveness is so important in any skill. जब हम skills की बात करते हैं तो उस पे होता है कि नहीं वो भी, we don't have to be perfectionistic उस पे. There's no perfection in life in general. So we will not always be the best at it, and that's okay. And telling yourself, we don't have to be perfect. Again, not an extreme perspective. Nahi, ab meri hard boundaries are over. It changes, and you will have days when you're not doing that great. When I visit Pakistan, it was totally different, right? And I'm like, that's okay. I'm in Pakistan. I'm visiting my family, and so that's okay.
It's different.
Yeah. So just being compassionate with yourself for any skill that you're learning is very important. Yeah, very, very important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This was really insightful, and one thing that, I mean, there are a lot of good things that we discussed, and a lot of things which I'm sure a lot, like, our audience found it helpful, found this helpful. What has really, I think, struck a chord with me is to stay consistent. Because at this stage, at this age in my life, and this stage in my life, I'm able to identify where my boundary is. But then I fail to stick with it, because when other person's like, kar lena, ho jayega na, aa jaye na, then I'm like, yeah, maybe, like, I'm being a bad person, kitna to consist kar rahe hain wo. And that's why, yeah.
I 100% agree with you. और इस पे मुझे एक example और याद आ गया. So I'll go ahead and share that. You know what? You'll see that people who are in the same mindset as you, which I call, let's say, growth mindset, they'll then learn from you and they'll start following that. I have a really good friend, and again, we don't want to take names. And initially, boundaries ka issue tha. So, but then whenever she would always say yes, so वो बहुत very nice. She would say yes to me every time, and I would say my no when I needed to. So then I said, you know what? I would really like if you also tell me when you're busy, and I would in my message say no pressure. So what I'm trying to say is that I modeled it, and now when she does it, so I really praise her. I said, I'm so proud of you. You said no to me. I'm like really happy because I don't want to take up your time. I'm glad you're focusing on your studying. So anyway, so now our friendship got even evolved and got stronger because we respect each other, each other's boundaries. So sometimes people will follow you and they'll evolve in that way. And those are the friendships you want to keep, or the relationships also.
and it comes back to that understanding ना कि boundary setting की वजह से relationships improve होते हैं. I'm setting boundaries because I value this relationship.
Right.
And
Right.
like it's and what you did is example. It's amazing. Like if I like give that space to other people in my relationships, तो उनको भी समझ आ जाएगी कि अच्छा हाँ, this is something that like he's making that space for me.
Right.
मुझे भी आगे करना चाहिए.
Right. And praising the other person also helps. Like, I'm so proud of you. You're working on yourself. Like, yeah, you do that because I care for you. I'm going to be happy when you're doing things that bring you happiness. So it's kind of praising each other for doing the right kind of boundaries. I think can also be a starting point, but with our culture, it's going to take some time. But it starts with ourselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I love it. I was just going through the comments and काफी लोग कह रहे थे कि लाइफ को सेव कर ले, तो that's what we will do. हम उसको लाइव करके we'll upload that, and yeah, it was very insightful.
Thank you so much.
Like in most cases you just need the words around an idea, और अगर वो words भी मिल जाते हैं ना, तो you are better able to understand it. And through this conversation I found those words as well कि अच्छा वो जो चीज़ के बारे में इस तरह सोचा था, कौन सी चीज़ से किस लफ्ज़ की वजह से clarity आ रही है. So
and I learned from
thank you for it.
No, it's not straightforward. It's nuanced. It's complex. So just it's not straightforward. It's complex, but spending time with it, and identifying and being consistent is helpful. Thank you for giving me the time to come in here and talk to you guys. And I'm a huge fan of your content. Please keep producing that, and I'll reach out to you for guidance.
We're happy to help whenever, whenever you want it.
And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of these conversations in the
future.
Yeah. And loved it. Thank you so
much.
Thank you for such an insightful conversation. And thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Right. And to everyone watching, thank you so much for sticking by ab tak bhi. And inshallah, we will see you in the next live.
And we'll try to summarize the points because there were a lot of good points that we discussed. Is live ko hum bhi dobara baith ke sunenge because this is definitely a skill that we want to continue working on in the coming year, in this year. So so we'll summarize the points and share those with you. Or ye live bhi hum save kar lenge. We really hopeful ki aapko
you find it helpful.
You find it helpful, or we'll do hope कि हम इस तरह की और live sessions कर सकें.
Inshallah.
All right.
Allah Hafiz everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.